Hey y'all, and welcome back to Adventures with Ariel. If you grew up in the 90s like me, you probably remember a time when your favorite sitcoms would have an episode or two where the whole family would go to Disney World. These We're Going to Disney World shows were a 90s staple and are well remembered by many. But I couldn't say the same for most movies that have been filmed at the Disney parks. A lot of them have flown under the radar. So today I thought it would be really cool to take a look at some films where Disneyland and Disney World have made a prominent appearance. How have these parks been used to tell a story through the medium of film? Let's find out. Before we continue, I'd like to put it out there that if you haven't subscribed yet, I think you totally should. I put out Disney and theme park related content every single week, so I promise it'll be worth your while. Just a heads up, there will be spoilers in this video as I will be discussing plot points of each film. Alright, presented in chronological order, these are the top 5 feature films that have been shot inside Disneyland and Disney World. Number 5, 40 Pounds of Trouble. The first major movie to be shot at Disneyland was not made by Disney, but by Universal Pictures. Allegedly, Walt Disney had turned down more than 20 previous proposals to use Disneyland as a filming location in motion picture films. So what was it that made Walt choose this one? Well, maybe it was the fact that the story was a lot more family-friendly than the previous film proposals had been, or maybe it had to do with Walt's close friendship with Jules C. Stein, who at the time had recently purchased Universal Pictures. Whatever the reason, the film was given the green light with a 1962 release date. In regards to the plot, 40 Pounds of Trouble is a family comedy that stars Tony Curtis as a casino manager who winds up looking after a young orphan named Penny. Penny wants to go to Disneyland, and 20 minutes of the film is devoted to their adventures in the park. This includes a ride on the Matterhorn bobsleds, vintage character appearances, and extinct park attractions like the Skyway. And as to be expected in a screwball comedy, hijinks ensue, including a chase scene through retro Disneyland. The critical consensus seems to be that this film is silly, 1960s fluff. And I would have to agree. But for those of you who are interested in seeing quality vintage footage of Disneyland, this one is definitely worth a watch. Number 4, Marvin's Room. Marvin's Room was the first film to shoot at Walt Disney World. This movie tells the story of two sisters, played by Meryl Streep and Diane Keaton. They haven't seen each other in 20 years, but when Diane Keaton's character gets diagnosed with leukemia, her doctor informs her that she needs a bone marrow transplant. So Meryl Streep and her kids, one of them being a young Leo, travel to Florida to see if they can help. This film is a classic 90s tearjerker, and you would think that the scene set at Disney World would actually be one of the lighter scenes in the movie, but nope, it's pretty heavy, just like the rest of the film. We see the family navigating classic Disney attractions like Splash Mountain and the Swiss Family Treehouse, but their vacation takes a dramatic turn when Meryl Streep's character admits to her son that his father abused him as a young child. We also see Diane Keaton's character have a seizure as she stares into the eyes of, Goofy. I say kudos to Disney for allowing their park to serve as a more dramatic backdrop for a change. Number 3, Escape from Tomorrow. So, we've come to this. Where do I even begin with this film? Well, I'll give you some backstory. Amidst its release at the Sundance Film Festival, the film initially drew a lot of attention because it was shot on location at both Disney World and Disneyland without permission from the Walt Disney Company. Due to Disney's reputation of being protective of its clean-cut image, the cast and crew used guerrilla filmmaking techniques to avoid attracting unwanted attention. For example, they would keep scripts on their iPhones and shoot on handheld cameras similar to those used by typical theme park tourists. There was a lot of speculation that Disney was going to make a big fuss about it, but surprisingly, they chose to ignore it. And after seeing the movie, it's not hard to see why. The plot it's something else. After just getting word that he's been fired from his job, a man named Jim decides to try to enjoy one last day of his family's vacation at Disney World, if you could even call it that. As I said, the film was shot at both Disneyland and Disney World, and this becomes really obvious when the family starts riding attractions. Hey, It's a Small World doesn't have an outdoor portion at Disney World, and there should be a roof over those teacups. Anyways, our main character Jim is kind of a creeper who spends most of the film stalking underage French girls around the park. He also has weird hallucinations on the rides, meets some very bizarre characters.
People just come here because they want to feel safe. They're afraid.
and finds out about a lethal virus called cat flu that's spreading around. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. The movie just keeps getting weirder and weirder as you continue to watch it. And I'm still not sure what the film was trying to be. My best guess is that it's trying to depict how Disney's illusion of fantasy is in sharp contrast with our grim reality. But nothing makes sense, and it's all done in a really campy B-movie style. To be honest with you, I found Escape from Tomorrow to be unintentionally hilarious. Easily one of the worst movies I've ever seen, but still surprisingly an entertaining watch. Number 2, Saving Mr. Banks. Released a few months after Escape from Tomorrow, Saving Mr. Banks is the story of how Walt Disney convinced author P.L. Travers to let him adapt her book, Mary Poppins, into a movie. Starring Tom Hanks, Emma Thompson, and Colin Farrell, the film is a really interesting look at what it took to make such a beloved film. In the movie, it's shown that Walt tried to win Travers over in several different ways, including a trip to Disneyland. While they're at the park, Walt hands out autographed cards to fans. The two take a stroll through Main Street and the castle, and once they get to the carousel, we learn that Walt won a $20 bet by being able to get the stubborn P.L. Travers on a ride.
Had a wager with the boys. Couldn't get you on a ride. I just won 20 bucks.
According to Disney historian Jim Corcus, Walt did try to take Travers on a tour of Disneyland, and she hated it. There is no documentation that she rode the carousel. But Walt did carry pieces of paper with his autograph on it to hand out. Die-hard Disney fans will also notice some historical inaccuracies within the park itself. The film is set in 1963, but Pinocchio's daring journey can be seen in the background, and that ride didn't open until 1983. But with that being said, I still feel that the scene did a great job in helping progress the relationship between the two leads, and that the retro Disneyland shown did a good enough job evoking good old 1960s Disney nostalgia. I don't think that the small anachronisms will bother the average viewer. Number 1, The Florida Project. This film drew its title from Walt Disney's early name for Disney World, when it was still in its planning stages. The plot follows the daily lives of 6-year-old Mooney and her mother Haley. They live in the Magic Castle, a motel that's just down the road from Disney World. Millions of people visit Disney every year with no awareness of the people living in the countless motels that surround it. Director Sean Baker says that the reason they focused on this particular area was because of the juxtaposition between kids growing up in these budget motels and then the happiest place for kids on Earth is just a mile away next door. Disney World isn't actually seen in the film until the last few minutes. About to be separated from her mom by Child Protective Services, Mooney and her friend run away to Disney's Magic Kingdom. Here, the film's 35mm photography is replaced with footage from an iPhone camera. It's a dreamy sequence that represents a fantasy. If the two were actually going to run away to the park, they would need to cross major highways and interstates, as well as have money to get in. Addressing this ending, Baker said that we've been watching Mooney use her imagination and wonderment throughout the entire film to make the best of the situation she's in. In the end, with this inevitable drama, this is me saying to the audience, if you want a happy ending, you're gonna have to go to that headspace of a kid, because here, that's the only way to achieve it. Pretty heavy stuff. Honorable mention, The Further Adventures of Walt's Frozen Head. Okay, so I haven't seen this yet, but I'm hoping this film is as interesting as the title and trailer would lead you to believe. It was just released a few months ago and was funded by the Disney fan community via Kickstarter. The plot is very intriguing. So, the movie is about a Disney employee who bumps into Walt Disney's cryogenically frozen head during his annual thawing. Walt's frozen head convinces the employee to take him to the Magic Kingdom for a day to fulfill Walt's final dream. I highly recommend you check out the trailer. I'll put a link to that in the description below. So those were my top 5 films shot at the Disney parks. Let me know in the comments if you've seen any of these films, or if this video made you want to watch any of these movies. I still can't get over how weird Escape from Tomorrow was. Watch that one at your own risk. You'll be thinking about it for days. Anyways, remember to give this video a big thumbs up if you found it interesting, as well as hit the subscribe button down below. I talk a lot about Disney and theme parks on this channel, so I promise it'll be worth your while. Alright y'all, thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a magical day.